So they'll say we have APIs, but has anybody ever connected them to another system before, right? And that's where the magic happens.
Hi, I'm Russ, and this is the Memory Makers Podcast, the show that helps you create amazing experiences and make more memories. All right, that's our news ticker alert that we've got a guest on the episode today. I am joined by none other than Mr. Zack Johnson of many companies, but most officially Diverted River Technologies, or not Diverted River Technologies, Diverted River, what are we calling it?
It's fine. You can call me whatever you want, Russ.
Diverted River. Zack and I have known each other for, the better part of 6 years now. We first came across Zack as we were getting into the esports world. And Zack, what I'd love for you to do is give us a little bit of a high-level intro on your background in tech and programming, as well as operations, and how that's kind of led you to where you are today.
Yeah, I guess best way to describe me is maybe a serial tech nerd. You know, like the problem is that I love technology. I love figuring out ways to solve problems, especially through software. And it's almost a curse because I'll find something that I can figure out in my head what we want to do to solve it. And then I take it to my team. They're like, this has nothing to do with what we're doing. So please don't make us program for, like 10 hours, 15, 20 weeks, whatever, on the next latest and greatest Zack Johnson idea. So luckily over the years, as I've gotten older, I've ran out of a little bit of energy, and it forces me to stay a little more focused on what our purpose is. But yeah, we met you guys, I remember, I think it was probably through Gen Con. We were running some big esports pop-up at Gen Con. We're about an hour west of you from Indianapolis, and we just crossed paths, I think, doing some big pop-ups there. And you were getting a lot of inquiries at CreativeWorks of how to integrate esports. And we'd written a software platform that over 90% of the U.S. market was using for esports. Worked together with you guys on some cool projects, all over the world. We put stuff in with you guys. Mm-hmm. And that's when we really started and Diverted River was kind of formed, was in those processes. I got to know the FEC world a little bit, and I was blown away of how disconnected all of the systems were. And we're trying to figure out just how to make esports work with, these other systems. And I realized all those other systems didn't talk together. And we got very, very fortunate. We had some large clients in the esports world, big names, Microsoft and Alienware and GameStop and folks. Some point during the pandemic, they all decided they wanted to buy us at the same time and ended up bidding it up. And we sold our esports platform in 2021. And that's when Diverted River was born. I said, hey, we are getting out of the esports, dedicated market for integration. And now we're going to integrate in the FEC market. So it's been a crazy, crazy, awesome, I wouldn't have ever done it any different, but it was a lot of pain going through all those years, I'll tell you that.
Well, I've always been super impressed with, one, everything is figure outable. I've yet to come to you with something where you're like, no, there's just no fix for that. And so I definitely can, appreciate I wouldn't call it it's a curse and a blessing, where I know that this is a problem that can be fixed. It's just wrangling enough people and herding enough cats and pushing enough ropes up a hill to get everybody rowing in the same direction for that. But I think what also has always impressed me is you also have a very big background on the operations side. So not only did you have this global platform that so many folks were using on the esports side to be able to create an easier experience for people to offer a variety of games and all of that, but you ran your own locations and had an understanding of what it was like to go through of creating a customer experience and solving problems and removing friction from them. So you've always had this very focused approach of what does this actually translate to for the end user and the guest, and why is that going to be something that's special and significant enough to get them to go, and do something more and more and more and come back again and again. But also being that operator gives you the blessing and the curse of, I just need things to be a little bit better. And how do we, work on that? And so one of my favorite things that I've seen you guys do was at your own location in Terre Haute where you had Lucky Putt was, hey, we can make this do some really groovy stuff. And I went down and I played it and checked it out. Tell us a little bit about that first piece of some of a single attraction, and we'll talk about some others as well that you guys are working on. But how do we take a single attraction and start to be able to connect it and create something that makes the guests stickier to us and more willing to come back? How do we gamify a little bit of the experience once they're done with the attraction itself?
Yeah, so you said a lot of great points there. And one of the things I've learned over the past 25 years of being an entrepreneur is there's always a way to fix something, right? And the key is it really a need, or is the customer, our partner, willing to pay for it, right? Like that's been one of the biggest things, is like it has to solve a problem or create more revenue so that they're willing to buy your product, right? So over the years, I've always been able to figure out how to do things in software. And with Lucky Putt specifically, we're just in this world of integration and data flow now. And I just watch it, it's an older industry. Esports, is new. And so everything was pretty new on the esports world, connecting Fortnite data with a customer account, League of Legends data, Rocket League data, create an experience, that made sense to us. And, we just assumed, bowling centers, FECs, skate parks, everything, like all those things were connected. And to find out they weren't, I was like, yeah, this has got to be something we've got to make this streamline better. I always talk about Disney. I'm a big Disney fan. And so with Disney, everything is so easy there for the customers to flow through the parks and do all the things in one app and one magic band and tap here. And you get out of there, and the thing that everybody complains about, you spend $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 for a 4 or 5 day trip, right? Just because they make it so easy for you to reserve your restaurant and get your fast passes and get into your hotel room, and the kids can run around with their magic bands, and I can put a limit on how much they spend and things. And I'm like, why are these not happening in FECs? So when we were looking at Lucky Putt, it's a great enclosed system. It was a great enclosed system by itself, but it wasn't connected with anything else. And we thought, well, what if we could gamify it a little more, which is kind of Diverted River's theme, is we want to amplify fun. We want to make fun more fun, if that's possible. Mm-hmm. But you really would like to get into it and have some consistency, and you want to see what your scores have been coming back multiple times, not necessarily how you stack up against everybody that's ever played Lucky Putt, because that's one thing we learned with esports is, I see this in the FEC groups on Facebook and stuff, where somebody comes in and they're like, oh, dude, we're going to esports these boxing machines, right? And I'm like, guys, you have no idea. Like, literally 1% of the people that come there care how ranked they are in the world. What they care about is how they rank with their friend group and maybe the local scene, but mostly just their friend group or their corporate party or their birthday party. They just want to see their little list, right? So take a birthday party or take a corporate group into Lucky Putt, let them play through, divide them into teams, let them have a little competition as they're playing against each other and win something, right? And the other problem everybody makes with esports and everything else, like, oh, we're gonna give away cash, right? Everybody wants to play for cash, which again is absolutely the wrong idea. We're gonna do that, Russ. If I wanted to take you to Back Nine right now, rent a bay, and say, we're gonna play for $40, right? We would just do that. The venue puts up money, and all of a sudden the whole place is putting in money. Everybody knows there's going to be a few people there that are going to win almost every time. And so eventually what we learned with esports is, like, you could have a Halo tournament, or you could have a League of Legends tournament. First tournament you'd hold would bring in 200 players. And you'd think, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. 200 players, they all paid $100. Next tournament, 150 players. Next tournament, 100 players. Next tournament, 50 players. And the ones that kept coming back are the ones that were winning money every time. And everybody else is like, it's like friends groups were breaking up with each other because they paid money to get in this tournament and they lost and they hate each other now. So with Lucky Putt, we just said, what could we do? And so we integrated it with the arcade cashless systems so that, again, you're already in the arcade, you've already got your game card, you're running around, tap it on the kiosk. It takes the charge up. If you want it to, it can take the credits off the card and charge you for it with the credits from the arcade. You play through, and we've gamified the score of Lucky Putt now into prize tickets back onto the same arcade system. So if mom or dad want to put them with their kids' tickets and they can all go shopping, or if they all want to keep their own tickets and go buy their latest Tervis mug or whatever they want to buy, right? They can go buy it in the prize vault, the same as everybody else is playing in the arcade.
Well, and the other thing that I loved about the overall ecosystem that you guys were able to create is, so you have a really unique position where your location, you have a variety of different things. You've got an arcade, you've got a pinball area, you've got Lucky Putt, and these are actually spread out within a mall. And so you guys also looked at it of, how do we unify this and get them to move and groove to the different portions? And so as I was playing Lucky Putt then I was also saying, hey, I'm getting XP points for just coming to the venue and doing these activities that then are giving me special promotions and bounce backs for, some food and beverage incentives and some other things. And so to your point of taking away this cash prize kind of idea and really giving it of something of what's going to encourage them to come back again. And that's, hey, I'm working on leveling up within the Sandbox Social, location. And that way I'm one more, high score away from getting a free meal or doing some of those other things. Like all of the incentives were based off of this app. It was super easy, but then I'm getting that, little creeping up and leveling up as I'm doing more and more stuff, but then I'm getting something of value, but that value is causing me to come back again as a player. And so that to me was being able to conjoin multiple attractions, within a traditional venue, let alone what you guys have where you've got a little bit of distance between some of those footprints within the mall, was incredible. Like absolutely loved it, because it's something that I hear so much where people are like, yeah, we want to create this somewhat of a scavenger hunt so that way we can incentivize them to do all of the things that we have to do. And it's like, this not only allows for that, but if I just really love one particular attraction and want to play that again and again, I'm getting a pseudo membership, and reward system for being a loyal customer there too. And so that to me was incredible, of being able to create redemption into things that didn't inherently have redemption, as well as being able to link all of my profit centers and incentivize them to do more of it. But even if they're really niche and focused on one thing, I can still give them incentives and ways to do that. And so it reminded me a lot of like how Uber is or whatever, where it's like, hey, update your settings or what information you have put in or what your preferences are, like, so that way from an operator side, it's like, hey, we can get meaningful data collection that allows us to better serve the customer, and the customer is able to prioritize and put their money in where they want and receive appropriate benefits, both redemption and not, which was unbelievable. Like I was just, I loved
to touch
it.
on your point that you mentioned earlier, I forgot to add, we've always operated a center. Like we operated an esports center while we were building, and that's how, like, we felt the true pain and the points of failure in the system. And I know that's why we built such a great esports system that was used worldwide, because it's again, Chris, my co-founder from Ireland, he ran 17 esports centers. I ran 3 here in Indiana. Mm-hmm. We met online in the early 2000s. We immediately became friends, and we're like, just figure out ways to solve this thing. And so his phrase was like, we eat our own dog food, which I always laugh because I'm like, is that an Irish thing? Because he's from Ireland. And like, I don't know, in America, we don't really eat our own dog food, Chris, but maybe that's what you guys do in Ireland, right? So we've always operated and then built software to solve problems for our own operations. And we're not afraid, again, like with you guys, when we looked at Lucky Putt, I said, hey, I'll bring it in. I'll put it in our mall. And you mentioned our mall, like it's a very unique situation. Would not recommend this to anybody else, what we're doing. But, we moved out of our old standalone esports building into a spot in the mall because I wanted to get into food and beverage. And we'd never done food and beverage. Would never have done if I wouldn't have met Dave Wallace and partnered with him on the food and beverage side, because he's got so much experience there, he and his group at Turfway. And, it spawned into this, like, so I had 1 space, and then I had 2 spaces, and then I had 3 spaces. And I'm also like really, really cheap. Like I can't spend money. Like I don't like spending it. I'm like, there's gotta be a way to figure out how not. So like we took an old, it was a Bagger Dave's restaurant that was still in pretty good shape. And we kind of first moved our pinball operations in there, which we bought some pinball machines, which led to a project with Jersey Jack Pinball that we're working on some stuff for them. But we moved pinball in, and then next door was an old tuxedo shop, and we turned it into axe throwing so we could partner and integrate with Champ Throw. And then next to it was another space that used to be a little girls like dress up birthday party. Like you'd dress up like queens or whatever. It was, all these were empty. Like they'd left them all and they were just sitting there. So we just slowly went through them and converted them into other activities. So the kids dress up shop became the arcade space around the corner. was another retail shop that was empty, and we turned it into a board and card game shop. And then Victoria's Secret that had been sitting empty for 6 years right in the center court, just talking to the mall ownership and said, hey, I think I can figure out something to put in there. And I remember talking to you guys when we were talking about putting Lucky Putt in, and like, what should we name it? And we're like, all right, we're just gonna name it Lucky Putt, because as long as you'll let us use the name, like, so each of these places, you know, are branded like Highlanders is our axe throwing, but there's a doorway through to the kitchen that we cut a hole in the wall so that we could serve food and beverage in there. And then there's a doorway from there into the arcade. And then around the corner on in the center court is Lucky Putt inside the old Victoria's Secret. And then across center court, another spot that used to be a jewelry store is now our VR arena. And we're just getting ready to open next to Lucky Putt, a batting cage simulator from a company called Batbox. We're doing a big software project for them. And again, it's so easy for us. Like, we open to the public with these tests that we're working on software integration for, because there's no better way to test it. It's like free QA and like, I can't explain it to folks, right? Like, I don't have to roll out software for one of our key clients before we've ran it through the paces here, where real customers are using it. It's not so the whole complex is called Sandbox Social, and it's named because it's our development sandbox. I don't know how long we'll keep doing it. I keep adding. My GM is great, Evan. He's like, how many more? Like, he's frustrated because he would like to be able to connect them all better together now that we're spread out more in the mall. It does flow okay, but like, we don't have a liquor license in Indiana to take your beer to Lucky Putt from the restaurant, and that's a miss for us. It'll be the same. We'll have to maybe figure out a way to serve in the baseball complex, but you know, again, all of these things all have like a domino effect down the road for multiple other software clients for Diverted River. So we wouldn't be doing Lucky Putt integration if we weren't going to go out with you guys and other Lucky Putt locations and transform their Lucky Putt experience and integrate it with their other platforms.
Yeah. So let's chat a little bit about as well some of the other things that you guys are specifically doing with other FEC clients.
Yep.
To remove friction from the operations, as well as create a smoother experience for the guests. You know, whether that's, we talked a little bit about some of the communication between attractions as well as integrating the systems. Like, what are some of the things that, you know, hey, we need to do some API connections and you know, not without getting into the ones and zeros, you know, and seeing the matrix too much. Like, what are some of those big picture pieces of like, how are we getting different point of sales or food and beverage systems and things like that to start talking to each other? What are some of those examples that you guys have done?
Yeah, so we start off with folks who are explaining to everybody that we're really the United Nations when it comes to software. We don't have a country involved. Like, we don't make bowling software. We don't make arcade software. We don't make go-kart software. We don't make any of that, nor do we ever want to do that. Those folks have been doing it a long time. They're very good at it. We just bring the translators to the table so that, you know, when you're at the United Nations meeting and you need to communicate and work on things, those systems have to talk together, you know, and understand each other. So I'll just use Pinheads as an example. They're one of our first clients in Indianapolis. So I walked in there with my family. We're going over there for a doctor's appointment. Where, again, Indianapolis is where you go where you want higher level doctor stuff than you do from Terre Haute, where I'm from. But we were over there for a doctor's appointment for one of the kids. I said, hey, for lunch, let's go check out an FEC. I remembered seeing a post from them in an FEC group. They were selling some old arcade cashless system because they'd moved to a new one. And I just wrote their Facebook page and said, hey, I'm going to be over there. Do you mind? And one of the top guys there came out when we showed up there and met me. And he's like, what do you guys do for a living? And I explained it. And since we've gotten to know them, what we've done, and the thing that they love the best is the back end system we built for them where, and I'll just use the software they use because it's no secret. So they use Cubica for their bowling. They use Square for their restaurant, and they use Simnox for their arcade. They have those three big things, and they're a very successful, massively, the revenue that flows through their place, and they've since built a new one in Brownsburg there in Indianapolis as well. But they live by the dashboard we built them in the back end that pulls all that data in real time into one dashboard. So instead of running a report from either one or trying to write scripts, I mean, they've done some pretty technical things where they took like exports from system, imported them all, wrote a bunch of scripts to show them in like a spreadsheet where they could see graphs and things, but somebody had to go hit buttons to do all that every day and everything. And I'm like, why would you do that? There's APIs, which is just an interface that two systems can use to talk back and forth if somebody tells the two systems what to do. Like, and I say this to folks again, like they hear API. If somebody has an API, especially if you're on a call with a sales guy from a software company, which is another reason why people hire us, is we start sitting in on these calls as they pick their tech stack, so we can say, cool, send us the documentation, we'll test it on behalf of our client. Mm-hmm. So they'll say we have APIs, but has anybody ever connected them to another system before, right? And that's where the magic happens, where in a dashboard for pinheads, they can see all of their data from Cubica, all their data from the restaurant, all their data from the arcade, all together in one report. And like we're now integrating a system for them and a few other clients called 7 Shifts, which manages their payroll. Now they can see their cost to pay on top of their real-time data and get alerts for their management of like, okay, this Tuesday this year compared to this Tuesday last year's tracking down. We probably need to cut some of the staff today, and we need to keep our payroll at, our target of 25 or 30% of the gross. They can't get any of that data live in any of those other systems, or you just got like some mission control dude who you're paying to sit with 8 screens open and try to make those decisions all day. And it's not practical to have somebody on pay doing that.
Yeah.
Nor should it be the case, because these systems are made to talk to each other. But I will say, in defense of all the systems, I use this all the time, Cubica and Simnox, for example, are the two they use up there. Neither one of those companies' jobs are to go integrate with the other company, nor should they be. It's not Simnox's job to connect into Cubica. It's not Cubica's job to connect into Simnox. They do their systems in a way that they have APIs available, so that if something happens in Cubica where you knock over, let's say you wanted to gamify bowling. What if every bowling pin you knock down earns 5 prize tickets in the arcade, right? All you got to be able to do is log a Simnox card ID into that Cubica bowling session, track how many pins are down, have that thing send back a command to Simnox, this person earned on this card so many prize tickets, and then when they go to the prize counter, they can buy stuff in the prize counter from the activity they did in bowling. And again, you can apply that to every attraction in the whole venue. Then you have what you talked about earlier, like I can see what my level is in bowling compared to my level in axe throwing, compared to my level. And you can earn a lot more points in the first few levels of a new attraction than you can if you've been, all you do is bowling the whole time. So like, hey, come get this 200 ticket bonus by trying out laser tag today.
Yeah.
When you show back up at the venue, and all that crazy stuff that you can dream up is possible once you have these systems connected and talking.
And that's the part that I just absolutely love, because I think that that's one of the biggest trends that's going to be relevant, for guests as they're coming through. It's not just the arcade ecosystem anymore that needs to be redemption enabled. And there's been, some movement towards it. But now when I can not only have each thing be redemption enabled, but now I can have that cohesively talk to each other, through that very easy to use app. And and then it can give me some notifications. It can give me some nudges to try new things. There's just so much good that can come from it. And I absolutely love that. And one last piece that I also wanted to chat with you on was, and you talked about the Jersey Jacks, piece that you guys worked on, and we've been super excited to start seeing what that will do as well. But it's like starting to enable pinball to have a cooler, more relevant redemption experience. So that way for younger players who maybe, because I know you are a hardcore pinball enthusiast, and it was something where, kids these days, their attention span or their draw to this type of an experience is not what it once was. And this is a way that you guys were able to work to create a more relevant redemption-enabled experience for something like pinball that then can also talk with the rest of the system.
Yeah, and I'll use Jersey Jack as a great example too. It's taken us a while. Like, we've been doing this for 2.5 years, and it's taken us a while to get these companies comfortable that we're not coming in and trying to like break through some barrier for their business, right? Like, I'm not trying to create, pinball machines. I'm just suggesting, hey, if you make your pinball data available through APIs, other creative folks will go figure out how to gamify that and tie that into other systems. So Jersey Jack in particular, they're not well known in the FEC space, in the route space or whatever. Other pinball companies their pinballs are more expensive. They're higher end machines, in my opinion, than some of the other pinball machines that are out there. But we've now given it the gamified system, same as Lucky Putt, same thing we did with Lucky Putt, right? We're like, well, what if like you could just, and again, we're super gamer nerds anyway. And so like, we're like the score should be dynamic for that location. So you should earn tickets at that location for, this one here is Toy Story. You're playing Toy Story at my venue and Sandbox. You're earning different ticket values than if you play up at Full Tilt in LaPorte or out at Coconut Bowl in Reno. Like, their ticket ratio is based on their players and their market, not across Toy Stories all around the world.
Right.
Jersey Jack has leaderboards all around the world for Toy Story, which matters to everybody else. But in those venues, if you want to earn like credits or points, and again, we can take those. It doesn't have to be points that are earned in the prize vault. Like, we've done projects for folks where those points could get you a $10 off coupon on your meal.
Yeah.
Again, if we're integrated with your point of sale that runs your food and beverage, we can easily inject deals into that system, the same as we inject tickets onto the Simnox or Intercard or Secoa card or whatever system you've got. So yeah, it is, it's so exciting and fun, but it is, I mean, we can do the technical work like that. Like, the technical side for us is weeks of work, but it is months of work to get in these meetings with these folks and make them comfortable enough to say, listen, we're on your team. The future is connected data. I'm telling you that. Like, that deep down. And a lot of these big companies, Russ, that have been doing this a while, thought they could make their own software do everything for everybody. Now they're finally pulling back and be like, oh my gosh, I don't have time to manage 19 different software roadmaps.
Right.
Because there's 19 different types of software for every single thing in FECs, right? How many reservation systems are out there today?
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
How many point of sale choices do you have today, right?
Yeah.
Like, crazy. Just if you go through laser tag and bowling, everything, there's always multiple choices in there for people to choose.
Yeah.
They can't integrate with everything.
And having something where you can also have a bespoke approach where, hey, this is what's really important, for where we see our guests most gravitate towards. So it can be tailored to the market. It's not a one size fits all, but you can also take like the Jersey Jack example where, hey, if I've got these 5 different machines, and they're all there, but I want to play head to head, in a cool experience as well, where it's this, I've got this bank of these 5 pinball titles and I want to play head to head against someone else, but they're on Avatar and I'm on Toy Story. And you told me this at IAPA, which I absolutely loved. It's like, well, the high score for this machine, like what a good score is on Avatar versus what a good score is on Toy Story, are 2 very different ones. Or the Elton John one, where it's like, okay, you should be good scores on this one is 4 times as much as what it is over here. And so you can also have these weighted scores even amongst those titles. Like, all of it is just so thoughtful and intentional about what is not only, hey, the core attraction itself needs to have these types of parameters, right, but then even a sub layer underneath that. How are these things, varying and changing every time? And so
so we have some pretty intense algorithms that run between those machines for that exact purpose. Because again, even older folks know this from golf with handicaps, right? Like, you have to find a way to level the playing field between different skills and different machines. And so the range of scores on every pinball machine is associated to a range of points. So the score on the pinball machine is still the score, right? You can still get the top score that shows up on that pinball machine on Elton John, it might be 4 billion points. But on the Hobbit, one of their older games, right, the good score on that is like 4 million.
Right.
So you have that drastic of a difference of top scores. But if you get towards that top in Hobbit and towards that top in Elton John, your scores are evened out through the algorithms, which is really, really cool. And again, we feel like everything should be that way. We do that with Lucky Putt inside of our venue. Like, the best scores in our Lucky Putt are where you've got to strive for, and that's how you're going to earn your tickets based on whoever's gotten they set those parameters, and it's just a little log that we run that shows, hey, you never get perfect score, you never get a 0 score. Everybody falls in that middle through a little statistical equation. But
well, I love it. I think that I'm super excited as more folks are looking to really solve some of these, hey, we've got these silos within our tech stack, and how do we create something that gives us more meaningful data to operate off of, but also really shapes the customer behavior to where they're getting and can focus on what they want and then get rewarded for that, for coming back. Like, these are the types of things where we talk about, hey, how do we get per cap spending up? How do we get frequency up? Those 2 of the big 3, right? Or just sheer volume of customers, like 2 of those are able to get dramatically improved when you're thinking intentionally about them and doing these types of things that you guys are doing at Diverted River. And so I'm just so stoked to see where that continues to go. Last thing then, as we're wrapping up here, what is a favorite audiobook or regular book or podcast or quote that you've been kind of, what's been scratching you where you itch recently from a philosophical standpoint?
Well, I'll give you two examples. One is business related, one is not. So we have some good friends that run a farm by us. And my wife and I right now like watching their weekly podcast about running their homestead, right? Like, and it's just a small little group of like, they've got all this cattle and they've got 5 kids. Our kids are about the same age. Our kids are friends. And I love like hearing, like last night they loaded up and went to Lafayette and picked up 3 more goats to bring back to their farm in the back of their giant 15 passenger van, right? Like there's a picture of them bringing it. So I'm sure they'll talk about it on their show. It's called Who's Your Homestead Farms, I think. So we love watching that. It's just kind of a fun personal thing. Business wise, it's fun for me. I mean, I feel so blessed and lucky to be on the journey we are, because we had an exit from our last company for Chris and I that has just allowed us to follow our dreams without needing to go out and raise money. The first time we did with esports, we raised money from investors. We didn't give up a ton of the company, but it's a different dynamic running a tech company where you've got somebody with money on your board kind of advising you and things. This time around, we're fortunate to be able to do some things, but we love the system. Like, in fact, we're just re-putting it back in. It's called Traction.
The EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operations.
And so as our esports company got to the point where we had about 50 employees, we found ourselves at a point we're needing to get more organized, especially at the management level with the different directors of each of the departments. And that thing was a game changer for us. Then we sold that company and started up fresh. We only have 11 people on staff now for Diverted River, but it's also because we're smarter and AI has made things so much better. Like, I don't know that I'll be back to 50 employees or need to be back to 50 employees with the tools we have, but we just are starting to re-implement with our executive group again, the EOS system after being away from it for 2 years. Like, so this coming Wednesday is our first level 10 meeting that we get together and we go through, create our scorecards and our rocks and everything. And I think there's other ones that are great. Don't get me wrong, but like, having something that you can follow, having something that you can just go through and it's got a little guideline and all of its principles, I think work really well for us. So that's my go-to right now. I mean, I've been rereading that the last week and a half as we get ready to start it again.
I love it. That's a great one. And we use elements of it as well. And it's something that Danny and I talk a lot about and whether it's increasing your wellness or weight loss programs or this, that, and the other, so much of it comes down to finding a system that you can consistently execute out of. So that way you have defined standards and you're doing it the same way every single time to evaluate and grow. Man, it makes such a big difference. And
let me tie it in for you. So we think, again, back in the app, everybody's used to seeing these progress bars, right? It's impossible for us to open up an app today without seeing you're 3 out of 5 of something. And I got to fill that green bar in, right? Like, that's maybe a lot of the gamer in me, but I see other, like the read through the Bible in a year app. If you're a Christian, like, shows you your progress in a bar, right? Like you talked about workout programs, they gamify Peloton. I love it. Gamifies working out. We think that, again, if you get all these data systems together, you can help them level up through your center and each of those things. That's what we want to do as humans, right? It's the easiest way to get things done is have somebody put a plan in front of us. Yeah, absolutely. And getting that little Pavlov's dog approach along the way never hurts. So yeah, I absolutely love it. I love it. Well, Zack, thank you so much for your time today. I'm super excited for folks to be able to reach out to you. And so if you guys have questions, we'll have a link for Diverted River in the podcast as well. Be sure to check them out. But with that, I think we're at a great place to wrap up. We'll continue to have more content coming your guys' way. If you liked what you heard today, please give us that 5-star review, please and thank you. And if you have any ideas for future episodes, hit us up on social media, and we'll be sure to get some of that cooking for you as well. Thank you again, Zack. Big shout out to Mikey Mike on the 1s and 2s working the Ultranet for us. And thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one, Troublemakers.